Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. The groomer left has an uncanny way of outing themselves every single time. Just imagine hearing about a bill to increase penalties on those who solicit minors for sex in exchange for money, rape in other words, and thinking to yourself that the people supporting such a measure must really hate gays and transgenders. Excuse me, but what? How did you get from that to that? That sounds like a Freudian slip to me. If you don't believe me, here are the wokesters in California opposing the measure.
We believe that SB 1414 takes an overly punitive approach that fails to address the root causes of these issues and will not effectively stop sexual violence. We are particularly concerned that the harsher penalties proposed in this bill will disproportionately impact marginalized communities, especially members of the LGBTQ community, who already suffer from systematic biases within the criminal justice system, particularly when it comes to sexually based offenses. Studies have shown that LGBTQ people, particularly gay and transgendered individuals, are more likely to be charged with sex offenses compared to their heterosexual counterparts. For instance, LGBTQ individuals are 9 times more likely to be charged with sodomy. Measures like SB 1414 lead to higher rates of incarceration, longer sentences, and increased difficulties in finding housing and employment.
Today, EBC must strongly oppose Senate Bill 1414. For the reasons I will state. We stand against any punitive measure that perpetuates systemic injustices, and we emphasize instead the need for community-based solutions. We strongly support investments in victim services and programs to provide housing and other alternatives to help people escape trafficking. We are concerned that the harsher penalties contained in this bill will disproportionately impact marginalized communities, particularly Black and Brown individuals who already bear the brunt of systemic biases within our criminal justice system. Under current California law, defendants could face years or even decades in prison for sexual violence committed against a minor, not just 6 months in jail as Senator Grove and prosecutors have previously claimed. Furthermore, the approach outlined in SB 1414 diverts resources from vital programs and services aimed at supporting survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation, opting instead to increase funding for lengthy jail terms.
Joining us now to discuss is conservative commentator Lauren Chen, a Turning Point USA contributor. Lauren, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, although it seems like we're always talking about the most disappointing stories together.
That is very, very true. This one, like you said, it's no different. And so I guess I have to ask you the big burning question. Are you, Lauren Chen, a homophobic, anti-LGBTQ, IA+ bigot for wanting sex offenders who solicit minors to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law?
Well, frankly, if wanting sex offenders to be thrown in prison and we just toss away the key makes me a bigot, I'm actually okay with accepting that label, because I think there's a bigger consequence than simply hurt feelings at stake here, and that is the safety of children. And it's interesting, we were just listening to all of the activists on the left, of course, who oppose SB 1414, and it seems like all of the concerns surround the people who would actually be going to prison potentially. They're worried that these people might be disproportionately LGBT or disproportionately POC. There's very little, if any, concern that they're voicing that has to do with the actual victims here. There was a quick line that they said perhaps that this would draw away funds from victim services. Supporters of SB 1414 have pushed back on this, and of course, as reasonable individuals, we know it's not either or. It's not either we help the victims or we punish the perpetrators. Ideally, it's both. But this seems to be just more social justice nonsense. They're so afraid of potentially hurting marginalized communities that they're actually willing to put children in harm's way to do it. And I think California, if you're watching this, you need to take a step back and ask yourself where your state is at, that these people are actually being entertained.
Yeah, it's like all they want to do is destroy what's good and true and beautiful, right? And so to them, criminals are the ultimate freedom fighters against the man. And again, the man just being all things sane and normal and good and holy. And so then they will support criminals through thick and thin, through everything, because if they truly care about marginalized communities, well, who are these men mostly affecting? If it's, someone who,
Exactly.
If the offender himself is LGBTQ, whatever, all of that, usually it's going to be another young gay runaway kid. It's going to be like what Harvey Milk did to a lot of gay runaway teens and stuff, giving them drugs and then, abusing them at the same time. I mean, on and on it goes.